He's a multimillionaire businessman running for governor and last ran for statewide office in 2004. Tim Michels has won the backing of former President Donald Trump this week. The endorsement is a massive shakeup in a race where former Lieutenant Governor Rebecca Kleefisch has long been the front runner. At the recent state Republican convention, she won almost 60% of the party's votes, as opposed to Michels' 4%. Political reporter Will Kenneally sat down with UW-La Crosse political science professor Anthony Chergosky to understand how this changes the race.
Thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Will.
So first I want to ask, were you surprised by this endorsement at all, either the timing or who Trump endorsed?
I was a bit surprised. I was wondering if Trump would even endorse at all in this election. It had been an open question if Donald Trump was going to make an endorsement in the Republican primary for governor here in Wisconsin, but his entry into this race definitely is a turning point in the campaign. And I think his endorsement is going to have a major effect because we had seen Tim Michels really rocket towards the top of the field since his entry into the race. He has covered the airwaves with television ads. He is spending his own money lavishly on his campaign. And I think the Trump endorsement is going to add another boost to the momentum that his campaign is clearly experiencing.
So do you imagine, for those who did not get the Trump endorsement, is there still a path forward in this election for them?
I think so. We have seen across the country that the Trump endorsement does not automatically decide Republican primaries. In fact, we've seen pretty high profile examples in Georgia, Nebraska, to name a few, where the Trump endorsed candidate did not win. I think it takes a candidate who can really leverage the Trump endorsement, who can take advantage of the Trump endorsement. I don't think a Trump endorsement on its own is quite enough for a candidate in a Republican primary. But if a candidate can take advantage of the endorsement through having the resources necessary to run a strong campaign, through having the ability to publicize the endorsement and take full advantage of the fact that Trump is the most popular figure among Republicans and that he is still the unquestioned leader of the Party. If you have a candidate who can take advantage of all of those things, I think the endorsement really does matter.
And would you see, kind of counter to that, would you see some of the other candidates maybe take a more moderate stance, having not received that Trump endorsement at all?
They certainly could do that. And we have seen some candidates around the country find some success in doing that. I'm thinking particularly of Brad Raffensperger, the embattled Georgia Secretary of State, who was a target of Trump, but was able to appeal to more moderate Republicans and even a number of Democrats in order to preserve his political career by winning his primary election recently in Georgia. So I think you might see some candidates adjusting their strategies. I'm particularly interested in what Rebecca Kleefisch does because something isn't working for Rebecca Kleefisch. Her campaign has not taken off in the very lengthy time that she has been running for governor in some way, shape, or form. Here we have Tim Michels entering the race in April, going right to the top of the field. I think this endorsement is going to make Tim Michels the front runner. And so there's going to have to be some sort of course correction on the part of Rebecca Kleefisch. You might also see the gloves start to come off in this campaign because as the race intensifies, as the election day in August draws nearer, you're going to see the candidates start to up the temperature, I think, in this campaign and start to go at it a bit more.
Is that kind of course correction, is that something that we'll see as soon as possible in Kleefisch's example, or can she afford to wait a little bit longer?
I think time is probably of the essence, Will. And I say that because this seems like a pretty pivotal time in the campaign where you do have quite a few undecided voters still in the Republican primary. And you also have quite a few voters who have soft opinions on the candidates, who are maybe leaning a certain way, but don't have a strong preference quite yet. Voters are very much still in the early stages of making up their minds for the primary elections in August. And with the Trump endorsement, That comes along at a pretty key moment in this campaign as voters are starting to tune in, as they are starting to form their impressions of the candidates, as they are starting to decide who they're going to vote for in August. So I do think the other candidates in the field are going to have to move pretty quickly in terms of how they counteract the effects of this endorsement of Tim Michels. Trump's endorsement of Tim Michels is for sure going to boost Tim Michels' support among the Republican primary voters. The question is, how will the other candidates respond?